actually, and it was a man.
Yeah, I go outside and I see them arresting this guy, and I was wondering, what did he do? I didn't see the actual event, but you're starting to see him run senators out of their restaurants. I think Sarah Huckabee Sanders had to get Secret Service now because somebody wants to attack her. And this is typical. We hear of movie stars threatening to kill the president. We're in a rage. I mean, people are raging because they didn't get their way in the last election. Now, what we want to see, of course, is godly people elected. So this psalm is fitting. I want to just open one more thing. I have a letter here from October 2018 from the American Family Association. It says this: an all-out spiritual and ideological battle is raging in America, and the outcome has yet to be decided. This summer, we saw a Bible banned from a billboard in California, while a statue to a demon was erected on the grounds of the Arkansas State Capitol. We saw a courageous Colorado baker win a major case before the United States Supreme Court, only to be dragged before a state commission on another charge. We saw an Army chaplain facing a possible court-martial and even military prison because of his views on same-sex marriage. But with a major midterm election coming up on November 6th, this is no time to sit home and fret. America desperately needs salt and light. It is time for Christians to get informed on the issues, rise up, vote, and get active in our culture. So I'm just going to open with that. Danny, I know you and Lois have been long-time Nevadans. I mean, I guess you were probably born here, right?
We moved here when I was 11, 1973.
Okay, that's right. Your father was the coach of Fresno, right?
He started at, first college job was Long Beach State, and then he finished at Fresno after UNLV.
So you pretty much had your childhood here. And did you also, Amy? Sorry?
I met my husband when he was coaching at Fresno State, because I'm originally from the Central Valley.
I said Lois, didn't I?
It's okay. Do you know how many people do that, actually?
You know why I say that?
And it's a compliment. You know, it is. I take that as a compliment. My mother-in-law is quite the fighter, and we named our first daughter after her in her honor. And so I'll go ahead, and I don't correct people. I just take it as a compliment.
Because I'm so used to hearing Jerry and Lois Tarkanian.
Yeah.
See, I was a student at UNLV when they won the championship. I was playing intramural ball with the guys there, you know, some of the guys. But anyway, you're long-time Nevadans. You know what's going on, and I know in our legislature it's pretty much getting stacked against the Christian values, and we're 100% for getting people in the Nevada legislature to stand for us here locally. And Christian pastors, myself included, and leaders in the Christian community really want to know that we have someone in our corner that believes in religious freedom, freedom of speech, school choice, which you were there. And I know, Amy, you were at the speaker at First Choice Pregnancy Services a couple years ago with Pam Kaler about
Correct.
pro-life, because you're all pro-life. These are things that are dear to me, more importantly than even question 3 or all these other, you know, financial things, which are important, but I'm interested in the moral side of coming from our perspective. So I want to just ask you and Steve and you, Amy, to just take it from here and tell us what we can tell our Christian brothers and sisters and what we can do to make a difference this election. I know we need to go vote, but what can we do to motivate the base?
Okay, well, I'll try that. But, you know, people get motivated. In fact, traditionally, Christians get out and do something when they realize that we have skin in the game. When they see the consequences of not turning out are going to be pretty bad. And that's what happened in November of the 2016. Evangelicals turned out in record-breaking numbers, and we had a huge impact on the outcome. I mean, we avoided a victory of somebody who really hates what we stand for.
Right. And they were shocked.
So, I mean, I think what we need to do is we need to, I hate to do this, but I'm going to quote from Saul Alinsky. He says, speak within people's experience. And the reality is that our experiences as Christians are going to be pretty darn miserable, and the persecutions are going to pick up big time if we don't continue to show up for the next several elections. Because we've got a lot of skin in the game, whether we realize it or not. Would you agree with that, Danny?
Oh, absolutely.
And let me actually take us back to 2016. If many of you recall that we had the top of our ticket on the Republican side, unfortunately, denounce our candidate, then Trump, before he was actually president. And you had Mitt Romney, who many look up to in the Latter-day Saint community, and a lot of them stayed home. Yeah. And unfortunately, the president now, he lost Nevada by 2%, and Danny lost CD3 by 1%.
1%?
By 1%. And so it is vital that every Christian get out and vote. Oh, it is imperative.
Absolutely. When you discover what the progressives have in mind, now let me tell you something. The progressive philosophies and ideology, they are totally anti-God, anti-religion, anti-faith, anti-morals. because where they're trying to take us, that's where they have to go to get us there.
You know, I was in Washington in July. I went there to be with the Christians United for Israel and stand with Israel's 70th anniversary, and we also met with our senators, Dean Heller and Kathy Cortez Mastos. Now, I met with Dean Heller's staff. I actually did meet with Senator Cortez Masto about issues pertaining to Israel and the use of human shields on the border there, where Hamas was taking, and I think Hezbollah probably, and putting people trying to blow through the borders, what they were trying to do, because America had decided to move their embassy. Anyway, while I was there, I saw mobs standing out in front of the White House in the middle of the night shouting at the White House with megaphones, and I thought, we really are. They really have a hatred for the president and for his ideology. I was hoping, God willing, you know, we get you elected, God willing, Danny, you go up there and you're a force for the president's agenda, or at least for the president's morals that we believe in, or at least for the morals that he's trying to promote. Let me put it that way, like borders and so forth. Israel learned how important a border is.
Yeah, absolutely.
I went to Israel in 2015. They've got a really good border. And so, I mean, when you get there, what's your intentions? What is one of the first things you want to see happen as a congressperson from Nevada?
Well, look, I was a big supporter of President Trump's America First policies, and I think you sort of made a little covert distinction right there between maybe some of the things President Trump says and with his statements and stuff, as opposed to what he's trying to get accomplished.
Right.
And I really believe in those things: is taking care of American people first, taking care of the American workers here. He has very strong fight for the pro-life and other issues, border security, which is really the most important thing our federal government does, is to secure the safety of the people in our country. And you cannot do that if you don't have border security. So these are the type of things that I'm going to be a reliable vote for President Trump on. If he does other things that maybe aren't according to that following, then I won't vote that way with him. But the things that he talked about in his campaign and the things that he's done now as a president, I've been fully supportive of.
Great.
Now, Benny, you're really right about the security too, because I've read some recent reports that that caravan that's trying to punch through southern Mexico on our way here, that somewhere in the neighborhood of about 100 or so Middle Eastern terrorists have joined up with that caravan.
Yeah, well, it's what I was saying when I was in there in July. Hamas and I guess the Palestinian Authority was trying to say that it was just straight, regular Palestinian refugees trying to get into Israel. It wasn't. It was embedded with terrorists, and they would put the children and women in the front. And so Israel was saying, hey, when you come over the wall or through the fence, we got to stop you. But then you say we hurting children, and that's what they did when they were putting, I guess, trying to separate parents and children at the border here recently. So the enemy's really smart how they operate. The opposition's really smart on how they make it look like one thing when it's really another. And we certainly want people that, like yourself, that care about national sovereignty. Steve, you opened up at the Gospel Lighthouse this morning and spoke a little bit about the agenda and showing how that the opposition, if you will, and I look at it like the spiritual wickedness, like Psalm 2 is talking about, and what American Family's letter is talking about, the ideological war. And you showed it the different things that the left wants to have, the so-called progressives, which I don't think they're progressives, I think they're Marxists.
Well, see, what actually happened is that they were influenced by the Marxist dogma and the writings of Alinsky as far as a manual of operations go. But they soon realized that people were onto that and they couldn't sell it.
They renamed it.
Yeah, they renamed it.
Just like
say,
family planning is really what
yeah, we're for progress. They just don't tell you what that really is.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, they're really great at propaganda, and we're so obsessed with telling the truth that we're not really. I mean, that's a sad truth.
They come up with a word, and it doesn't. And as soon as people realize what it means, and it becomes a really taboo word to the public, they just change the word and do the same thing.
Right.
I mean, it goes from illegal immigration to undocumented, and now what was a new one? They're saying unregistered is the one they're using now. Unregistered immigrants instead of undocumented.
And I was just going to back you up on what you were saying about the 100 or so ISIS terrorists that are coming through that caravan. And actually, it was a couple days ago. It was announced by the Guatemalan president that in the country's largest newspaper, they had actually caught 100 ISIS terrorists in their country, and they were actually part of the caravan.
Yeah, I mean, that's
They
one
were,
of the
they were
reports I
getting
read.
ready to join the caravan.
So who's funding this caravan?
Yeah,
That's
it's a
what I
really
wanna know.
good question, because you
How
can't believe
they
everything on
afford it?
social media, but there are videos of people handing out money.
Yeah. Well, I
They
think
have an agenda.
I think the ultimate question to that is we funded it.
Yeah, probably.
It's just not directly.
Right.
See, when Kerry was over trying to negotiate with a government who's run by people whose God is whispering in their ear to kill us.
Yeah.
Obama, to sweeten the deal, gave them billions of dollars. And guess who the number one sponsor of terrorism in that neck of the woods is? The people we gave the billions to.
Right.
So, yeah, I think our own dollars are coming back at us in the wrong way. So,
Well, and you kind of, sarcastically say that God was whispering in their ear to kill us. It's also been reported that since the left's tactics haven't been working fully, that now we have witches out there casting spells on a regular basis. You look at me funny, but I've seen it. They're casting spells supposedly at Justice Kavanaugh and at our president.
I saw
believe it or
that.
not, there are candidates. There are Democratic candidates for the U.S. Senate who have actually hired so-called witches to come cast spells and hexes on Trump and Kavanaugh and
probably other people that have Christian values.
Right.
That's why we're going to pray a shield over you all every day. I want to say to all of our Christian brothers and sisters and friends, keep praying for people like Danny and Amy and all of those that stand for Christian values, because it is become a raging thing. And like I said, I'm not surprised at all. When taking the Ten Commandments off of the capitals and they're putting the demon Baphomet up on got the article right here, you got to read it, on one of the state capitals. Is it Arkansas? You take the Ten Commandments away somewhere, but let's put that in its place. You're always going to have this vacuum, and I'm not surprised at all. While we're praying for righteousness, the enemy's trying his best to curse you all, lie about you, make up lies just like Kavanaugh or whoever. I mean, I'm not here to relitigate that thing. Whew, that was tough.
Amy and Danny, one thing I really have to hand it to you. I just totally admire. I mean, I've worked a lot of campaigns over the years on staff, and I know what it takes to get through, and it's the level of effort is absolutely staggering. And
I think my husband is part robot. Seriously, nobody will outwork this man.
Especially in the last 3 or 4 weeks, right?
Yes.
And especially in this climate. I mean, for someone who believes in our constitutional rights, who believes in due process, who is a practicing Christian, in this atmosphere of, as you put it, rage, I think that takes extraordinary courage. And Danny, I got to tell you, both of you, I have to admire your, what Disney call a stick-to-itivity.
Perseverance.
Yes, perseverance. Thank you.
That is the Armenian trait. There is no group that's ever been persecuted like the Armenians, and they still keep coming back stronger and tougher than ever. And I give that credit to my grandmother Rose when she came to America from after escaping the Armenian genocide.
Wow, I mean, your grandmother actually escaped that
Oh,
was the genocide in Turkey that happened around 1919
she
or
was
so?
in the village. So what happened was
1918.
she was very young. Her mother sewed coins into her dress when the Turkish soldiers came into the village, sewed coins in her dress, put her on a horseback, and got her out of the village before the slaughter started. They made her father watch his eldest son beheaded in front of him and then beheaded him. Then she got to the top of the hill and watched all of the villagers taken into the Christian church, which is the way they used to want to kill people, was in the church, and they were burnt alive. Now, Armenia was the first Christian nation. It had the first above-ground church after the passing of Christ. And, in fact, Noah's Ark was supposed to be in the Ararat Mountains, which is next to Armenia. So there's a lot of symbolism there.
Yeah, well, what's interesting is that that whole area, even including Saudi Arabia, before Muhammad came along, had a very strong, large Christian community there, and most of them have been converted with the sword or killed off, or
the Armenian genocide killed 1.5 million of the 2 million Armenians that lived there. Now, I don't know the percentage of the Jewish people that were alive at the time that went through their genocide, Holocaust, and I know there was a lot more with 6 million, I believe. But has any ethnicity ever lost 75% of all the people that were around at that time? That's an incredible percentage.
And for people in government still are in denial.
I know
that it ever happened.
Well, actually, I lived for several years in Turkey. Among the local population. In fact, my alarm clock in the morning was the muezzin coming out on the minaret and calling out the 5 a.m. prayers to the city.
Oh wow.
And I only lived about a mile from the seawall where 500,000 Armenians were marched off into the bay to drown. And so, yeah, I mean, that's true. And what I want to point out, to be honest here, is that in 1918, Turkey had lost in World War I. World War I was just over. The Ottoman Empire collapsed. It was toppled.
Yeah.
And for the next 5 years, which includes this period, there were a number of revolutions going on to see who would gain power. But the Islamic factions were the ones who were doing this.
Mass murder.
In 1923, Ataturk took over. He kept the 5 pillars of Islam and the religious component, but he got rid of everything to do with Islam, from Sharia courts to you name it, and established a constitution based on ours. And I have received incredible kindness when I lived there from the people who were there, and they wanted nothing to do with Islam. Nothing.
Well, interestingly enough, too, Danny's grandmother Rose, when she was on her way out and trying to make her way to the U.S., there was actually a really good Turkish family that hit her for a short amount of time.
Hit her in the basement when the Ottoman soldiers came looking for her.
So they're not all bad, but it was a very trying time, that's for sure.
But I think what this illustrates is that, Danny, you have a keen appreciation, within possibly the living memory of your family, of what it really means to be persecuted, what it means to come from a minority to this country to seek freedom, and how precious that is. I think maybe more than anyone else running for office in this season here, you truly understand that.
And how sacred our liberties and freedoms are that are now being taken away from us slowly but surely by a radical liberal left. And it needs to be stopped. And it's starting at a young age in the classroom. It's moving all the way up into the political system.
Yeah, in fact, that is so true, because I knew someone who was a very devout Christian, went to UNLV, was hammered by his professors for that, and he was actually halfway lost when he came out, graduated. So, you're absolutely right.
Can I ask you something, Danny and Amy? First of all, what's your number one issue in your mind that you really want to see happen? Like if you were... and God willing, you're able to get there and maybe later sponsor some bills and back some things. What is your number one issue? Do you have anything in mind?
Well, I think the 2 biggest issues out there are the economy, which is going great right now, and so I will be a voice to continue that. And then also our national security, protecting the borders. And also I'm a big believer that we shouldn't be going overseas and fighting wars that we have no business being in. I don't believe we should be using our military force unless it's a serious imminent threat to our national security or one of our very close allies. And I would like to see that stopped. We could be using, not only are we losing lives of brave men, innocent men and women that are overseas, but also the trillions of dollars that are being wasted overseas that could have been spent for people here in America that need it much more.
Right. And Amy, you ready to move to Washington?
I've been ready.
I was just there, and it was raining like cats and dogs. I was there raining for 3 solid days in July.
Let me tell you, if I get to Washington and she comes, you'll see her as the star host on MSNBC or CNN, because she's the only articulate Republican they still put on there, and she'll be great at it.
He's my biggest cheerleader.
So are you wanting to?
I'm just waiting for the paycheck.
So you wanting to do talk show type things? And
Yeah, no, that's
commentary?
what I enjoy. And I was on MSNBC earlier today, and they've actually had me on every Sunday now for the last couple months. And they've already got me booked again for the following weekend. So they don't like it when I speak truth and use fact, but that's okay. I know who I am at the end of the day, and I can look at myself in the mirror and be proud of myself. So if they don't like it, that's all right. And it's interesting because usually when they don't like what I have to say on social media, they'll go and they'll attack my faith.
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting?
We're down to 1 minute. I just want to say this. I think that our ladies that are godly, that have Christian values, that can speak well, are even more effective than men, because today the man is kind of like sort of emasculated. We can't hardly say anything without getting accused of something.
Yes.
It's sad.
But it's hard to do that to a lady. And so it's real hard for them to fight back against another woman that can speak. So I just want to say we're so glad to have you. We're down to probably 1 minute. I did notice that there was one of the Trump daughter-in-laws is a very good speaker. I forget which one it was.
Probably Laura.
Laura. And I was like,
married to
wow.
Eric.
I thought she was like a professional talk show host, and I realized that can't be the same family. Anyway, I wanted to say you should be doing that, of course, standing up for what we do, and you do that and use your abilities. And Danny, thank you for being with us. We've been with Vegas Revival. We're down to 5 seconds. God bless you, and really get out there and vote for Danny and Christian values. God bless you.
Thank you.